Hi fellow gamers, it's been a while, I hope you're well. And in today's video, I am going to share something new from Black Wolf Entertainment. This is Machine Guards of the NOXIAN Expanse. It is a post-apocalyptic feudal role-playing game. You can definitely run this with a GM and a group, or you can choose to play it solo as there are solo rules in this book. In this video, I will not be talking about the rules. Instead, I will be sharing some of my thoughts as a new player to RPGs and solo RPGs, and what are the things I've learned as a new player in terms of running a solo RPG. So if you are like me, new to the hobby, I hope that you will be able to take away some interesting points and some things that can help you with smoothing out the learning curve. So now let's take a look at the background of this game. This is a world that has surpassed the peak of human civilization, and there has been, of course, a crash from there with the rise of AIs and other super intelligences, and humans they have found themselves in this very strange world of a dystopian futuristic world with medieval-like societies. In this game, you are playing as a reclaimer. So reclaimers are a special class of adventurers who are familiar with technology. However, they are also explorers and they have a affinity with old technology as well. So you can find these reclaimers threading between the line of medieval societies and ancient technology, and they're also viewed both as holy and profane in this world of superintelligence. So as you can see here, there's an artwork on the reclaimer. There's one right here as well. Just to share a little bit about where or how I ended up doing this video, in the last 3 sessions that I have played, I've actually ran the game analog. As you can see here, I have some paper and some writings and scribbles written on top here. And I also have some more over here. As you can see, some character sheet. I even have a character sheet here. These are all part of my play testing, even combat. So I ran this thing with just pen and paper, and it has worked out fine. But for today's session, I have actually prepared something that you can see on the screen. I hope that really helps, because there's no way I can share with you or reference to some of the interesting things that I have picked up from the game through this very illegible scraps of paper. Moving the screen up a little closer, what I have here is a character sheet which I have customized it myself. Of course, there is already a ready character sheet from the creator, which is here, right? But I have decided to use my own just to show you a little introduction about the character. I'm playing a character called Gwyn. He is a former slave and he is from the Flatlands. So essentially, the NOXIAN Expanse is made up of wastelands, and there are ancient debris, there are still natural terrain like jungles, plains, hills, and so on. But essentially, we find the player character in this setting called the Wastelands. So my character is at level 1. He has earned 21 experience points so far. He has actually survived for 7 days, and these are the character attributes. Pretty much standard: strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, willpower, and persuasion. He also has something called a defense rating and initiative. So as you can see here, this game system is pretty much one that uses modifiers with a particular score being rolled and compared to a table that converts the scores to a modifier value. For Gwyn, his motivation is to discover why all children born in his region have started manifesting strange abilities. So the motivation gives some start to the character that you're playing. And the rest are pretty much unique to each player character. So mine, in this case, he is carrying a maul, a two-handed weapon, and he has a chain shirt, 5 rations, and keyfall. So keyfall are actually the currency used in the NOXIAN Expanse. He also has some gear that he picked up. Over here, this is actually the exploration grid that is required in the game. So in my first few sessions, I have actually done this in a very analog way. So this is supposed to be joining up. My character has been moving up northwards. So I have converted this into a digital form to show you. So this is actually the path that he has tried to move along. So what you can see here is actually a result of me trying to create a visual aid for the exploration part of the game, and also the various tables, matrices, and oracles that enable you to play this game without a GM. So first of all, let's take a look at the exploration flow chart. So first of all, of course, in exploration, as I've shown you over the grids over here, so basically you will have to roll on a few tables to generate these 3 things. Number 1, a point of interest. Is it something of a landmark? Is there a settlement? Is there a ruin? And of course the weather in that grid, and also the terrain that I've mentioned. And once you have got that generated, you have a setting, and then you will roll for an exploration event. Number 1, which will be nothing interesting that happened. Number 2, there will be some hazards that your PC has encountered, and also some combat encounters in that grid. And after the exploration event, your character can go on to do some foraging and hunting, which will generate some rations. And why are rations important? Because your character will need to survive on rations, otherwise he or she will starve. And last but not least, there is also a camp phase where you will consume a ration, and you will also go on to do some healing. Here is the main part on the scene generation, which I find really useful as a new solo RPG player. I have tried to make sense of the various tables, oracles in the chapters, and I have came up with this to help me with generating a scene. So first of all, a setting and a scene, what are the differences? In my terminology, to facilitate this conversation, a setting would be something that is static. It would be the terrain, it would be the weather, it would be what's there that your player character can see in the grid itself. And a scene would be more of something that's moving, that changes with time. There are events, there are actions, there are interactions that go on, that happens within the grid. So first of all, we are told to create a scene, which is coming from the exploration tables, and you are supposed to roll for a twist. If there's a twist, then there will be a surprise event. If not, you will go on to generate some other things as well. So for surprise events, this is a bunch of descriptors, 8 of them to be precise. The surprise event is supposed to tell you of the outcome of a certain situation and to tell you what happens next, so you can actually generate some storyline to it. And subsequently, you will also be rolling on an action theme table, which helps you with inspiring discoveries, events, character details, or motivations, to basically to add in more flesh for the surprise event. And if that is still not sufficient, you can also roll on the table where it tells you if there is anything of interest and the event's significance, so that you can interpret from there. So of course, with these few tables that I've gone through, creating a scene, a surprise event, an action and theme, and event significance, they might not be sufficient. And that's why we have the yes or no oracle that's over here, which is more of an open-ended engine where you can test the likelihood of something happening one way or another. And if that is still not sufficient, you can go on to find out its complication. All in all, with the oracle that covers the more open-ended questions, and the scene, twist, surprise event, action theme, significance tables, these sort of generate within more fixed parameters. They work together to create a plot. We will all be driven towards updating a story arc. And this is really important because you could go on to ask questions, you could go on to roll on these tables. At the end of the day, if it doesn't make sense in terms of updating the story arc, why your player character exists in the game, what is the motivation of the character, his goals and missions in the game, you would find yourself very lost with these tables and oracles, even though it's there. So as a new player, I find that number one, you need to understand what these tables are helping you to generate. Number two, the kind of questions or how to question in such a way that it helps you to find out an answer that contributes to shaping the story arc. So that takes practice, obviously, and I hope that with a flowchart like that, it helps you to understand more what are you trying to do. There are also three other independent trackers or tables that are part of these scene creation. Number one, of course, the NPCs that are around within that grid your player character is in. There's also the event tracker. This is using a usage die, one of the favorite mechanics that I love from Current Athalas, the dungeon crawler, where it tracks a resource depletion. For example, time. For example, it could be someone trying to hunt the player character. And lastly, we also have the random action resolution table, where you do not need to roll for a check for one of the player's attributes, which you would normally do in most RPG games. You could go on to this table to just find out if it's a success or failure of various degrees. So with all these, it is supposed to help you to generate a scene and a plot that really makes sense, that creates and shapes the story arc. So a story arc, again, it is something like a journal. It is the headlines of the journal for your player character that drives the story forward. So I hope that with this gives the newer players an overview of the various chapters and the paragraphs that are written in the book. To see that in this flowchart, I hope this really helps you to understand the game and to, lack of a better word, to play a better game, and a game that you could enjoy, because the tools are right there, the right mechanics are right there. Is how we really make sense of them and how we generate the input into these engines to generate an output that makes sense for the game. Over here, I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about these. These are really an understanding, I think, for a new player for RPGs should have, so that they understand what they are trying to do in the game. So as I mentioned over here earlier, there's a surprise event, unknown event table which requires you to roll a 2d8. So the 8 elements are actually over here, which basically these are the elements of the player character's realm or physical environment. Number one, it could be the encounter that may take place. Is it something physical, which means it pertains to the health of the character? Would it be the physical environment and perhaps the location, something happening? And of course, non-player characters, the player character himself, knowledge about something, and even something to do with the fraction or party relevant to the player character. So all these 8 elements, they actually pretty much is sufficient to shape up a particular setting and a scene for a storyline to take place. And over here on the right, it is something that I have understood from what these tables are trying to help the player character move forward in the game, or to understand the psychology of the player character. What are the things that we should be looking at, and how it actually functions in the world of the RPG, which is pretty much the same as in real life. So over here, it's the player character. So there's a span of various degrees in terms of proximity that I've identified, and also whether they're in control or out of control with respect to the player character. So first of all, of course, that is something that is closest to us, or the player character, would be the motivations and goals. Some may argue that these are conscious, some may argue that these are unconscious, but these are things that are the closest to the intrinsic self. Next, we move on to the physical body of the player character, and then to physical objects and other beings around the character. And then moving forward, of course, the natural environment and physical environment of the character. Now, one may argue that perhaps the natural environment should come before the physical objects, but then again, it is really up to you how you define and how you see these things, but they don't make much of a difference. For example, take for example this pencil over here. It is right in front of me, right? And I'm in this room. So which one am I nearer to? Is it the room or is it the pen? This is up to your own interpretation, and it's up to debate, but it's not too critical. So next, it will be events happening further away from the player character. It could be seen, it could not be seen, it could be news that's happening. And finally, even further beyond the player character, that is furthest from the control, would be something like, I would imagine, divine intervention. And in this case of the machine gods, it would be the AI gods. So again, one may argue divine intervention could be something that's closest to self if you are an exponent of a monotheistic religions or faith. It could be that one believes in the Atman, where the Atman is the self and the self is the Atman. Nonetheless, of course, we are not going to go into the debate of that. But in general, coming back to the realm of the RPGs, where the context of this is fantasy world, this would form good enough parameters in terms of the environment, proximity that's closest to the player character and furthest away out from player character, how we can interpret these things to shape and to concretize the game and move it forward. Here are the journal pages of Gwyn, my player character. I have in total 7 days of exploration over here, over 3 sessions, but I'm not going to go in depth into this because this is really more for my use as I go on through my sessions. I record down the notes in sort of like a journal format. But what I like to draw your attention to would be the story arc that is at the bottom here. So it is important after every scene, we have to sort of make sense of what's happening and develop the story arc. So if I may run you through, the first story arc would be that Gwyn is actually hunted by someone or some group, and he also found out that he was pledged for a huge sum of Kifol on the bounty, so he is actually bounty hunted. How much, he's not too sure. And this is actually just one of the ruin. So this is a room, it's a corridor, and basically he has found a shrine with an idol, and the room has anti-magic. I could continue to explore the room, but I have decided for the purpose of playtesting, I would just explore a little bit of that and leave the ruin. So as you can see over here, I have the bounty hunted tracker, which is from a D10. I will roll this D10 every day, and until I hit a 1 or 2, I will decrease the D12 to a D10. Back to the story arc, Gwyn has also found out that there's a prophecy or breakout of an epidemic of sorts, or a spell lifting of sorts, that will cause the children with strange abilities to lose that. And further on, Gwyn also has found out that he may not be able to return home ever if he seeks to find the reason about the strange children. And the climatic part of this point was that Gwyn was at the crossroads, and he had wrote a check for his will, and he passed it, which means he has decided to pursue the reason, find out about the strange children, and potentially foregoing the chance of returning back home, which is one of the climatic points of the story. And also he has discovered the bounty hunter's den and will soon find out the reason why he's being hunted. So I'm at the point where I'm trying to close up the story arc for the very first bounty hunter story. So all in all, I think story arcs are like mini headlines. They are titles in the journal for the player character. So I hope I've given you a kind of an overview of my take with experiencing the various game mechanics, especially the exploration, and more importantly, the oracles and the solo GM-less RPG system that is included in Machine God's NOXIAN Expanse. So with that, I think the next session I may do a playthrough to just show how it works, how these pieces form together, to have a look at the deeper parts of the mechanics of the game. If that is interesting to you, let me know, or various parts of the game that you may want to find out. Please feel free to leave a comment or drop me a message and let me know so I know what to feature on for the next video. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you have enjoyed this session of the overview on Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse from a new player's point of view. Thank you very much.